inshallah, next Friday should be the first of Dhul Hijjah, inshallah ta'ala. And with it brings upon us a blessed time of year again, alhamdulillah. And for those of us, of course, who probably missed Ramadan dearly after it departed, of course, alhamdulillah, Allah has allowed us now another blessed season, and it is upon us, inshallah. And for that, we want to highlight some of the merits of what is about to come upon us, inshallah, beginning next Friday, like I said. So, alhamdulillah, this Dhul Hijjah, inshallah, if all goes well, and depending, of course, on the right sighting of the moon, next Friday will be the first of Dhul Hijjah, and the following Friday will also be one of the Dhul Hijjah. So we'll have 2 Fridays, inshallah ta'ala, hopefully, this season, inshallah ta'ala, this Hajj season. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, of course, today we are gathered in this blessed masjid, mashallah, in this beautiful town of Santa Barbara, Galita, alhamdulillah. It's one of the most beautiful masjids I've ever laid eyes on, by the way, and a beautiful community, mashallah. So let's thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that, first and foremost. And after that, inshallah ta'ala, we'll go and try to go through the merits of these blessed months, blessed days which are upon us, inshallah ta'ala. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, the virtues of the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah and the essence of sacrifice. And what it entails, inshallah. Okay, sorry, not working. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, why are the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah special? So coming, like I said, next Friday, inshallah ta'ala, will be the first of Dhul Hijjah. And upon that, of course, commences the season of Hajj. Already, we have people who are embarking for Hajj, have already embarked for Hajj. And this year, unlike many other years, the people who are traveling for Hajj have gone through some changes. I'm not sure if you're aware of all the differences that have taken place this year. In fact, the Saudi government has disallowed any groups or any actual travel agencies who actually have been doing this for so many years. They've actually changed all of that, and so a lot of people who had already given their deposit, etc., before they were going to go for Hajj, unfortunately are no longer going, and some people who at the last minute probably made their entry, alhamdulillah, are going for Hajj. I actually have a friend who's going for Hajj today, alhamdulillah, she's actually from Santa Clarita. So, may Allah SWT allow their Hajj to be accepted and make it easy upon all of them. But for those of us who are not going for Hajj, we can definitely partake in the blessed days also, and this is how we'll be doing this, inshallah ta'ala. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Allah SWT, so why are the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah so special? Allah SWT has honored these days by taking an oath in them, as mentioned in Surah Al-Fajr, which is Wal Fajr wa Layalin Ashr, which is by the dawn and by the 10 nights. And according to the majority of the scholars, the 10 nights in this verse refer to the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, which of course day and night, all of which are definitely blessed. Note, swearing an oath by these 10 days is indicative of the great importance and benefit of these days. Something you will notice throughout the Quran is Allah SWT swears oaths in the names of things or items. For example, wateen, right? What does teen mean? Fig, thank you. Was zaytun? The olive, exactly. Watur sinin, just not recently. And Mount Sinai, Tur Sinin, Tur Sinai. So subhanAllah, Allah SWT, of course, being the creator of these things, can definitely swear an oath in the names of items. You and I, however, do not have permission now to go out and swear an oath in the name of the olive, of an olive, or a fig, or my mother, or my child, or something to that effect, which a lot of people do. They say, oh, I swear in the name of my children, I swear in the name of my mother, etc., etc. According to Islamic law, the only valid oath is valid oath is one which is sworn in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is God. And for those words, we usually recite the word wow before it. So we say wallahi, right? Or billahi, and etc. So these are actually letters which are accustomed to be used in front of a valid oath. However, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, being the creator of things, He can swear an oath in whatever He wants. And in this case, He has sworn an oath in the name of the dawn, the Fajr time. And by the 10 nights. Now you and I know, alhamdulillah, Fajr time is a very blessed time, and we've actually been told also to recite the Quran during these moments of this time. Alhamdulillah, we do our Salat al-Fajr. But after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, and by the 10 nights, wa layalin ashir. It means the 10 nights, and that is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing an oath in the name of these 10 nights or 10 days, and which happen to be the first 10 days and nights of Dhul Hijjah, which inshallah ta'ala, like I said, starts next Friday. So these are the best 10 days of the year. Definitely we have the best month of the year, which is of course Ramadan. But out of which, throughout the year now, we have the best 10 days of the year. And the 10 days, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said, there are no 10 days better in the sight of Allah than the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. Ibn Abbas reports of Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, there are no 10 days in which righteous deeds are accepted, are more beloved to Allah than these 10 days. And the people asked, not even jihad for the sake of Allah? He said, not even jihad for the sake of Allah, except in the case of the man who went out to fight, giving himself and his wealth up for this cause and came back with nothing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obviously beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said time and time again that these are very virtuous days and that righteous deeds are very beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during these days and nights. And so for that reason, alhamdulillah, we have a week notice I'm giving you, and inshallah we will buckle down into ibadah mode coming next week, inshallah. And so for that reason, try to spare up more time, do more dhikr, do more righteous deeds, and inshallah I'll give you a list of things that we will do inshallah ta'ala to enhance those 10 days, inshallah ta'ala. Recommended deeds, of course, fasting. One of the wives of Prophet said, the Messenger of Allah used to fast on the first 9 days of Dhul Hijjah, the day of Ashura, and the 3 days of each month, which is the Ayyam Bid, which is the white days as they call it. But other than that, the ones that we're talking about today is actually the first 9 days of Dhul Hijjah, beginning from next Friday onwards. Now, of course, if you're a Haji, if you're a person going for Hajj, it will not apply to you, but this will be for the non-Haji, which is you and I, alhamdulillah. And if you have the opportunity and if you feel you can do so, definitely participate in fasting during these first 9 days. Dhikr, the second thing that we will definitely do in abundance is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just as recitation of the Quran is a hallmark of Ramadan, dhikr is the hallmark of the blessed 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. Abdullah ibn Umar reports that Prophet said, there are no 10 days greater in the sight of Allah in which righteous deeds are more beloved to Him and than these 10 days. So during this time, recite a great deal of the following: La ilaha illallah, which is called Tahleel, Takbir, which is Allahu Akbar, and Tahmeed, which is Alhamdulillah. So if you were to, of course, say Subhanallah, Walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, commonly known as the third kalima, for example, then Alhamdulillah, it has all of that, all of these three elements combined in that. And the reason why this season is so important for of course, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is because you will see that throughout the Hajj, that the Haji is already doing that. From the time that he or she embarks on this blessed journey to the time that they're there, the whole time, what they're doing is they're praising Allah, praising God, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And okay. Right. Let me go back. Technical difficulties. Right. So throughout the Hajj, you will notice a pattern for the Hajjaj that that's exactly what they're doing, especially when they're, of course, doing they're obviously going around the Kaaba 7 times. They're saying they're praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're doing the Safa Marwa. They're praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout. So you and I, alhamdulillah, just sitting here, actually can also participate in the dhikr of Allah, doing his by the Prophet ﷺ himself. And so definitely allow dhikr to be part of your daily repertoire, hopefully beginning next week, inshallah ta'ala. And I'm sure it's part of your daily reciting already. And with dhikr, alhamdulillah, you don't need wudu, right? You don't need to be in any specific fancy place or anything like that. You can actually be doing it right now. Like as we're speaking, you could do subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. You could be going to work, on your way back from work, at work, anything. All of these places you can do dhikr of Allah. Alhamdulillah, I would definitely encourage you to do that because definitely we are entering the season of dhikr. Takbirat al-tashriq, or after the daily salah. So starting from the Fajr of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which is going to be, according to our calculations, the following Saturday. So not this coming, of course, not the 2nd of July, but it will be 8th of July? 9th of July, right? Yeah. So 9th of July is actually the day of Arafah, which is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, alright? So on that day, from the Fajr Salah onwards, all the way till the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, you will, up to the Asr prayer, you will recite after every daily Salah this specific dhikr, which is Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. Now, you're probably thinking, how am I going to remember that? Because of course you and I tend to forget. So a lot of people have actually got post-it notes and stuck it on their prayer mats, which I found very funny and very cute at the same time. So you can probably write don't forget the takbirs, after your salah, and you can definitely participate in that. According to some ulama, actually, some shuyukh, some people, they've actually said that this is not just a sunnah act, but it's actually a mandatory compulsory act, it's a wajib. However, try your best, inshallah ta'ala, to recite the takbir. If you do participate in the salah in the masjid, you'll notice that all throughout the Muslim world, in these days, you will have the imams recite the takbir out loud, and you'll see that throughout the Muslim world. And even in your masjid, you'll see that. If you, as ladies at home, doing salah, you can definitely read it, and you can read it out loud, or you read it to yourselves, no problem. But to read it out loud, if you're alone, and if you want to read it out loud, you're more than welcome to. And of course, alhamdulillah, it does feel very good when you're praising Allah out loud. It's totally different when you praise Allah quietly, and when you praise Allah a bit louder, like when you say it out loud. And you can actually feel something for some reason, it really affects your heart when you say dhikr out loud. So alhamdulillah, these words actually will do so much to your soul, inshallah. So the day of Arafah, which is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. So we have, like I said, we have the first days of Hajj, which of course, we start from Dhul Hijjah. The first days of Dhul Hijjah start next Friday. But the actual Hajj, the person who's going for Hajj, the journey begins for them, the actual Hajj starts for them on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. On the 8th of Dhul Hijjah is where you'll see the Hujjaj, they all embark upon this place called Mina, and they'll spend the night there in tents. And after that, the next morning after Fajr, on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, they will start their journey to the plain of Arafat. And this is you can say, the most spectacular event of Hajj, the plain of Arafat. And in fact, there is no Hajj without Arafat. Arafat is in fact, Al-Hajj Arafat. Hajj is Arafat. If somebody missed out on Arafah on that day, then there is no Hajj for that person. So subhanAllah, this is the most spectacular day of Hajj, like I said. And for us, for you and I, the least that you and I can do is at least resemble the Hajji in a way that, in some way that in our homes, in our own lives, right? So one of the main reasons for the first days of Dhul Hijjah being special is that they contain the day of Arafah, which is, subhanAllah. The day of Arafah is the greatest day of Hajj, the day in which sins are forgiven, souls are released from hell, and du'as are readily accepted. And this is for the Haji and for the non-Haji alike, all of us, inshallah. The Prophet ﷺ said there is no day wherein Allah sets free more slaves from hellfire than the day of Arafah. Indeed, he draws near, and then he boasts about them to the angels and says, what do these slaves want? What do these slaves of mine want? And so definitely take it upon yourself to free that day, which is the Saturday before the Eid, for the worship of Allah. Definitely dedicate yourselves into dhikr, definitely dedicate yourselves into dua, and inshallah you'll be fasting hopefully on that day as well, which we'll talk about inshallah. Allah's completed favor upon the ummah. So on the day of Arafah, at the time of Prophet ﷺ, when he did his one and only Hajj, by the way, he did one Hajj and subhanAllah in his lifetime. The day of his Arafah happened to fall on a Friday, by the way, okay? And so, of course, as you know, a Friday Hajj, even nowadays, we consider that to be like a double blessing. But not to say that a non-Friday Hajj is less meritorious, it all holds merit. Nevertheless, when the Prophet ﷺ happened to do his Hajj, it happened to fall on a Friday. Now, in his Hajj, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed a very special verse, and we'll talk about that right now. So on the day of Arafah, it was so special to this ummah. It was on this very day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon the ummah its greatest gift by perfecting the religion of Islam and completing his favor. Imam Ahmad recorded that Tariq ibn Shihab said, a Jewish man said to Umar ibn al-Khattab, O leader of the believers, there is a verse in your book which is read by all of you Muslims, and had it been revealed to us, meaning the Jews, we would have taken that day on which it was revealed as a day of celebration. Umar ibn al-Khattab asked, which verse are we talking about? The Jewish man replied, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا, which is in Surah Al-Ma'idah, which is part of the third verse of Surah Al-Ma'idah, by the way. So it's not the beginning, it's in the middle, also in the third verse of Surah Al-Ma'idah. This day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you and have approved for you Islam as your religion. Umar replied, by Allah, I know when and where this verse was revealed. And Allah's Messenger to Allah's Messenger and it was on the evening on the day of Arafah on a Friday. So on the Hajj of the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ this amazing news of the perfection of our faith, and that it was the culmination of our faith in a way, and that he literally gave us this gift of his divine favor to this ummah, to all of us, alhamdulillah. And that is why we have to be very grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that favor upon us. So much so that a Jewish man actually observes this verse and comes and makes a comment about it to Umar radiallahu, and he actually calls him and addresses him as, oh, leader of the faithful, which is interesting, right? Because he himself was not a believer. And so much so that the Jewish man is observing the Quran so much that he's actually paying attention to the revelation of the Quran. For me, that actually aspect of this hadith actually really took me back. Because a lot of us, born Muslims, have no clue about this verse or many other verses for the matter. And subhanAllah, non-Muslims are paying attention to the Quran from the get-go, more than you and I. And so that is something that I was really taken aback when this hadith has been recited and read. Just the fact that the Jewish man was paying so much attention to the Quran, subhanAllah. And it is such a beautiful verse because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is literally declaring that I have completed my, I have completed my religion upon you, and of course completed my favor and granted you my divine favor. So alhamdulillah, you and I have to understand that if everything goes wrong for us in this world, God forbid, at the end of the day though, we have something called Iman, right? And we have to lean on to that Iman because every single thing subhanAllah, can go aside. But your Iman and your faith is what will carry you over, inshallah. And that is the most important thing that you have with you right now. That is the biggest asset that you have. And we all have as a ummah, alhamdulillah. So this particular verse was actually revealed during the Prophet's Hajj in Arafah, during his Arafah journey, and which was of course commented about by this Jewish man. So the fast of the Yawm al-Arafah, which is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which is the Saturday, the 9th of July, right? Yeah? Okay, right. So it is recommended and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ for those who are not pilgrims to fast on this day. Abu Qatada relates that the Prophet ﷺ was asked about the fast of the day of Arafah, and he said, it compensates for the sins of the past year and the coming year. So, subhanAllah, it's a very big deal. Okay? So 2 years of sins will be compensated for if you fast on this day. So the day before Eid, inshallah, definitely make it upon yourselves, take it upon yourselves to fast. And alhamdulillah, this year it happens to be on a Saturday, so much easier, alhamdulillah, none of us have to go to work, etc. And allow you, maybe encourage your children as well to fast, and give them that, excitement that the next day is Eid anyway, so, something to look forward to, inshallah. But definitely try not to miss out on this particular fast for sure. Now the ritual sacrifice, Udhiya. So we've done the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which happens to be the Yawm al-Arafah, the day of Arafah. The next day is what the Haji calls Yawm al-Nahar, which is the day of sacrifice. Now for you and I, of course, we're not going for Hajj, so we will do our sacrifice in our respective countries, wherever it happens to be. So the ritual sacrifice of Udhiya and Qurbani. Udhiya, an Arabic word, means blood sacrifice. Qurbani, an Urdu and Persian word, that is derived from the Arabic word Qurban. So Qurban actually is an Arabic word, which a lot of us from the subcontinent have no idea. We assume that Qurban actually happens to be an Urdu word or a Persian word, but in fact it actually is an Arabic word. So, however, in the Arab world, majority of the Arabs will not say the word Qurban or Qurbani. They use the word Udhiya, if I'm not mistaken, right?
We say both in Murtala.
Oh, you say Qurbani too?
We say both in Murtala.
Oh, okay, just curious. Because I've always heard the Arab population say Udhiya, right? Anyway. However, in the non-Arab world, majority of us use the word Qurbani, yes? Right? And that's how we grew up anyway. Anyway, so Udhiya Qurbani is technically used for the sacrifice of an animal slaughtered for the sake of Allah, right? Okay? Animal sacrifice has been recognized as a form of worship in many religions. In fact, from the get-go, even at the time of Adam alayhi salam, the sacrifice had been taking place, and of an animal, by the way. In Islam, of course, the sacrifice of an animal has been recognized as a form of worship during the 3 days of the year, namely the 10th, 11th, and 12th of Dhul Hijjah, right? So we have the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which is Yawm al-Arafah. We have the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, which is Eid for us, but for the Haji, it's called Yawm al-Nahar. Nahar means, again, to sacrifice. Like you remember, for example, in Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, fasalli li rabbika wanhar, right? So that Nahar there means to sacrifice. Allah is telling the Prophet ﷺ to, praise Allah and, of course, do the sacrifice. And then, so Yawm al-Nahar, which is the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, for you and I, of course, we're not going for Hajj, so that is going to be our Eid. For the Haji, there's no time for them to do Eid, it's a very, very busy day. For the Haji, on that day, they have to do the sacrifice, they have to shave their heads or clip their hair, for you and I as women. They have to go to Makkah, they have to do the Tawaf al-Diyara. Oh yeah, sorry, before that they take off, so once they do the Udhiya or the Qurbani, or they will then take off their ihram, and they're very, very happy, and they're going around the parts of Mina, they'll go up to each other, they'll be hugging and they'll be embracing, they'll say, alhamdulillah, we're Haji now, they say Hajj Mubarak, Hajj Mabruk, and very exciting day. For those of us who are still waiting for the Udhiya to take place, we haven't still taken off our ihram. So then some of us, what we'll do is we'll go to Makkah first, and then do the tawaf, and then come back, and then wait for our time. Sometimes the Udhiya doesn't take place until the next day, so we're still sitting around in our ihrams, So it's for those people who come back on that day they've done all three things, we're almost like the other Hajis are almost like jealous of them, like, oh, they're already done, So, it's quite funny actually, But it's like 2 million people trying to get to do the same things at the same time. So you can imagine the rush, right? But each time it's just amazing, And so now that you know the rules, how it works, you're just kind of waiting around, and then you're like, okay, should we do this? Should we do that? But usually you go with a group and you go for the tawaf first, and then you come back, alhamdulillah. So that is what takes place over there. Now for the Haji, the Qurbani or the Udhiya has to take place in which place? Any idea? Mina, yeah, thank you, you said that. Yeah, chocolate's for you, yeah, I didn't bring chocolates today, by the way. So for the Haji, the Udhiya will take place, or the Nahar, the Qurbani will take place in Mina itself. For you and I, however, we can do our Udhiya anywhere in the world, okay? So it doesn't have to be taking place in Mina. Now, of course, that's just a little bit of a tidbit on sacrifice, but I'm going to get to a little bit more detail. So the origin of Udhiya. The act of Udhiya is to commemorate the unparalleled sacrifice offered by Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he obeyed the command of Allah conveyed to him in a dream, he prepared himself to slaughter his beloved son Isma'il, and actually did so. But Allah, after testing him of his submission, sent down a ram and saved his son from slaughter. From that time onwards, the sacrifice of an animal became an obligatory duty to be performed each year for every well-to-do Muslim. So there have been some, so going back to the Udhiya first and foremost. Alhamdulillah, I'm sure you and I are very well aware of the fact that this is where the animal sacrifice has come into Islam, of course. Due in part, of course, and mainly because of this spectacular event that took place at the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was commanded to slaughter his one and only son at the time, which we'll talk about a little bit more in detail with the verses which I'm about to show you. Apart from that, I wanted to just quickly highlight this part, and that's why I put down Hanafi here. So according to the fuqaha, which is a jurisprudence, obviously our jurists, there's a difference of opinion as to who needs to do the Qurbani, or who is Qurbani mandatory upon. And for the Hanafi school of thought, it is actually wajib or compulsory or mandatory to do it for each and every one of us who are what we call sahib al-nisab, who actually has the nisab, or who have to give zakat, for example, in any way. So it's actually mandatory for all of us. So for example, if we're 5 members of the family, and each and every one of us are sahib al-nisab, then we all have to give the Qurbani. According to different other rulings, according to, I think I'm not mistaken, the Maliki school of thought, I could be wrong, but I'm sure you can highlight. One person of the family, or the main person of the family, is one is sufficient for the rest of the family. Is that right? Yeah. And so you'll notice that in the subcontinent or anywhere there is a Hanafi majority population, you'll see that the Qurbani takes place, like there's a lot of Udhiya taking place, and because every single one of us have to also participate in this, in this sacrifice. Whereas in other parts of the world, and according to depending on what school of thought they follow, it could be just one per family and not for one per person. Right? Now in my family, I can tell you right now that as a child even, like my father has done it for all of us. So even when I was a baby, like there was from the time when I'm back in my 40s now, So alhamdulillah, like my father has probably done my Qurbani every single year, and so that's at least about 48 years old now. So 48 Qurbanis probably have been taking place for me, on behalf of me. And of course, as I've grown older, of course I've done my own also. But my dad even still does mine, even though I'm obviously much older now. Just to let you know. And that is how much Qurbani is a big tradition in the part of the world that I'm from, So just wanted to highlight that. So now the philosophy of course, Udhiya and the essence of Udhiya or Qurbani. Mufti Taqi Uthmani Salim, sorry, is still alive. So Taqi Uthmani states that the philosophy behind Udhiya is that it is a demonstration of a total submission to Allah and a proof of complete obedience to Allah's will or command. When a Muslim offers Udhiya, this is actually what he intends to prove. The Udhiya offered signifies that he is a slave of Allah first and foremost. And that for a moment he receives, and that he would not hesitate even for a moment, he receives an absolute command from his Creator to surrender before it, to obey it willingly, even if it had to be at the price of his life and possessions. This is exactly what Ibrahim did, right? That's exactly what we're trying to, sort of emulate here. Was no reason why a father should have to slaughter his innocent son. But when the command came from Allah, he never asked the reason for the command, nor did he hesitate to obey it. And this is the true philosophy of Qurbani. Now, the Qurbani incident, as mentioned, or the sacrifice incident, as mentioned in Surah Al-Safat, and I'm going to highlight those verses for you, inshallah ta'ala. So if you get a chance, definitely I would appreciate it if you could go back and maybe study these verses on your own. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, Rabbi habli min as-salihin. The Prophet Ibrahim a.s. is the dialogue between Prophet Ibrahim a.s. right now and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, "O my Lord, bless me with a righteous son." This was dua of Ibrahim a.s. saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "Rabbi habli min as-salihin." So we, فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. So we gave him good news of a forbearing boy, forbearing son. By the way, what does Isma'il mean? Anybody? The name Isma'il. It's quite, think about it, Isma'il. Yeah, there you go, yes, mashallah, yeah. So, because he was, Allah heard, in other words, literally that's what it means, Allah heard. So, because he made dua and Allah gave him a son, so then Prophet Ibrahim a.s. named his son, Allah heard. So, okay? So, just keep that in mind. So, because a lot of times we don't really know what that means, right? Also, by the way, Ibrahim, also, it's actually something to do with love, the father of love. So, so we might not know the names, we might not know the translation of certain names, but E, if you notice the part E is always to do with Allah. So you have Israel, or you have Bani Israel, right, So you have Yaqub alayhi salam, his name, is also known as Isma'il, Israel. So Yaqub, his other name is Israel, right? So we have heads of Bani Israel. But Israel actually means a servant of Allah, just like Abdullah, for example, in Arabic, okay? So we have a lot of E's, Israel, right? Jibra'il, right, okay? So the word Allah here is actually in reference. So anyway, going back to Isma'il alayhi salam, this was how he got his name. فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَىٰ فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ فَانظُرْ مَاذَا تَرَىٰ. Thereafter, when he reached an age in which he could work with him, he said, "O my little son, I have seen in a dream that I am slaughtering you, so consider what do you think." So he said, "Ya abati if'al ma tu'mar, satajiduni insha'Allah min as-sabirin." He said, "Oh my dear father, do what you have been ordered to do. You will find me, insha'Allah, one of those who endure patiently." فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَ وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ. And so when both of them submitted themselves to Allah's will, and he laid him on his forehead, وَنَادَيْنَاهُ أَنْ يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ. And then we called out to him, "O Ibrahim." قَدْ صَدَّقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا. You did make the dream come true. إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. This is how we reward those who are good in deeds. إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْبَلَاءُ الْمُبِينُ. This was indeed a trial that clearly demonstrated their obedience. So it was indeed, Bala al-Mubin is actually a clear test, in fact. It was a huge test, if I'm not mistaken, and definitely I don't know of a test such as this. وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْهٍ عَظِيمٍ. And we ransomed him with a great sacrifice. وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ, and we left him, meaning Isma'il, we left for him among the later people. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Salamun ala Ibrahim. Salam be on Ibrahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually sending his peace upon Ibrahim. كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. This is how we reward those who are good in deeds. Again, the muhsineen word comes up again. If you notice again, on top of those words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ صَدَّقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And again, نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Surely he is among our believing servants. وَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِإِسْحَاقَ نَبِيًّا مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. We gave him the good news of Ishaq, a prophet from among the righteous. وَبَارَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ وَعَلَى إِسْحَاقَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِهِمَا مُحْسِنٌ وَظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ مُبِينٌ. And we did bless him and Ishaq among the progeny of both of them. Some are good and some are utterly unjust to their own selves. So this is a snippet, of course, these are the verses which highlight this great event in quite some detail, subhanAllah. Now, so I want to quickly go back to these verses before we continue, inshallah. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam is saying, Rabbi habli min as-salihin, and actually he's actually gone out and asked for a righteous son. And as you and I are probably well aware of the fact that Ibrahim alayhi salam was an elderly man at this stage, and he actually did make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a righteous son. And the events unfolded, as you may be and may not be aware, but he was married to a woman called Sarah, and eventually he was then married to a lady called Hajar, who was actually was given to Sarah as a gift. Sarah said to Ibrahim, why don't you, she's our gift, so you can have a relationship with her, and maybe we may have a child in the process, because Sarah was obviously up in age. And so subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did in fact give Ibrahim alayhi salam a child at an elderly age. However, with Ibrahim alayhi salam, nothing came easy. So as he has this child, he's probably very happy, I'm sure they're very, very, very happy. At this moment in time, they're living in Sham, Palestine area. That whole area was called Sham back in the day. So basically Palestine, Jordan, Sham, Syria, that whole area was considered, like I said, just a Sham, right? So he was in Palestine, a beautiful location. From that beautiful vicinity, beautiful area, just like mashallah over here right now, you see, Santa Barbara and Galita, your area is absolutely beautiful. In fact, when you go to Palestine, it's interesting because you actually, you see some California in Palestine, by the way, but Palestine is definitely more beautiful, just yeah. And there's some, I'm telling you right now, it's absolutely gorgeous, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to visit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved Al-Aqsa and its people, for eternity. So yes, not just saying that because it's a beautiful land. It's just because it's Palestine and you're supposed to stay. It's great, but it actually is beautiful, and it has these rolling hills, and you see actually layers of the landscape, and a lot of trees and a lot of greenery, mashallah, So subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually blessed the land and has made it very fertile. In contrast to Makkah, right? So Ibrahim alayhi salam now has to leave this beautiful land according to of course, the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After having this child, he takes Hajar and he takes Isma'il, and he has to make this tedious, very treacherous journey all the way to this unknown land, and which was actually mentioned in the Quran as Makkah, right? Which is of course Makkah. And he comes here, and now he has to leave this child who he has asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, named Isma'il of all names, and he has to now leave this child and just literally just walk away. Completely barren area, which is very dangerous and very treacherous. And of course, Hajar has to run up to him and say, "Why are you leaving us?" And Ibrahim alayhi salam could not even answer her. Like literally, just he didn't even have the heart to turn around and say to her why he's doing what he's doing. Now, we always talk about the iman and the faith of Ibrahim, right? But for me, I always focus on the faith of Hajar. Because Ibrahim a.s. was definitely the prophet of Allah, right? But the family, they were not prophets, right? So let's focus on this woman first and foremost, right? And subhanAllah, she was so strong in her faith, and she was so strong in her faith in her husband also, but definitely in the faith of the Creator, because when she turns on and she says to him, "Why are you leaving us?" And he obviously does not answer. And so again she asks, and he does not answer, and she asks, and then he turns. Then she kind of understood that he's walking away and he's not saying anything. And knowing Ibrahim the way he was, and his name was Ibrahim, is literally full of love, a lot of compassion, and an amazing, of course, genuine human being. The wife says to him, "Did Allah order you to do this?" And that's, at that moment, that's the only time he literally, nods his head in the affirmative. And so she got it right away. She didn't scream, she didn't yell, she didn't freak out. She couldn't call anybody, she didn't have a phone. But at the same time, there was nobody there. There was literally nobody there in Makkah. And so she said, well, in that case, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered you to leave us here, then He will definitely take care of us. So for us, it's the Iman of Hajar. That's, for me, speaks volumes. Definitely Ibrahim a.s., but I think Hajar is the one that, for me, gets all credit. Alhamdulillah, we have Zamzam today. Sometimes you think, why couldn't it just happen the first time? Why couldn't it just that she ran once and that was enough for Allah? But no, again, sacrifice and more sacrifice, right? And that's what makes this Zamzam, and that's what makes it so sweet. The fact that this woman had to go endure all of that, right? And then at the end, alhamdulillah, we have this, the spring of Zamzam, alhamdulillah. So now we have Zamzam, and which we're drinking till this day, alhamdulillah. But again, because of the sacrifice of this one lady, and of course the sacrifice of her husband, and of course, we are where we are now. Now, Ibrahim a.s., as you can see, he leaves and he's gone. By the time he comes back, because he's not allowed to come back, he's not allowed to come as he pleases, by the way. Remember, he's a prophet of Allah, right? So he doesn't get to come and go as he chooses. So that's why this verse, when it says, that when he reaches the age, when he reached an age in which he could, basically work with him or walk with him and have fun with him, or, do archery with him, right? That's when Ibrahim a.s. comes back. Now Ibrahim a.s. comes back, and they probably have this great reunion and everything, and next thing you know, no, it doesn't last very long, okay? Because now Allah is going to put him on another task, right? And so he comes back, he enjoys his family for a very, 1.2 seconds, and then next thing you know, Allah has now given him this monumental task of now sacrificing his son. Now it does mention over here, as you can see, that Allah says that he had a dream, right? Where is it? Yeah. Inni ara fil manami anni adbahuka fanzur madha tara, right? But I have seen in a dream that I am slaughtering you. Now you and I are probably thinking, well, it was just a dream, it wasn't a wahi. So for the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, any time that they see a vision, that is also a dream. It is also a wahi, by the way, okay? So if, now you and I, of course, we see all sorts of dreams, okay? So please do not act upon your dreams, okay? Because we don't know what we'll be dreaming about tomorrow. But for the prophets, of course, every single dream that they also dream is in fact a wahi and revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when he sees that, he doesn't just take it, right? He doesn't just come into the home or whatever and take Isma'il and say, hey, I'm going to go slaughter you now. He literally comes back and he has a dialogue with his son. And he says to his son that, hey, my beloved, ya bunayya, it's like a beautiful way. So, oh, my dear son, oh, my beloved son, what do you think? I've had this dream, and so now, again, just like we had the Iman of Hajar, now we need to focus on the Iman of Isma'il, okay? Now, who's done the Isma'il? Who's developed Isma'il into this young, strong, Iman-filled boy? Of course, none other than Hajar. Again, so she gets all the credit, So subhanAllah, here we get Isma'il, and now he's like, sure. And now I'm just thinking about if it was my kid, like he'd be calling 911, he'd call Child Protective Services, what I'm trying to say. But subhanAllah, he's like, oh Father, go ahead, if you literally do as you have been commanded to do. And that's exactly what he does, subhanAllah. And so that story is mentioned, in this Mazhari, it says. So when both father and son reached the place of slaughter to offer this unique act of worship. So the place of slaughter is none other than the place called Mina, right? So it's like a distance away from, where we're at, in Mecca. It's actually approximately 3 miles or something away. And so Ibrahim alayhi salam takes Isma'il alayhi salam to that distance from Mecca, and he's about to he's about to do the sacrifice. So he says, when both father and son reached the place of slaughter to offer the unique act of worship, Isma'il said to his father, my dear father, tie me down well enough so that my body may not toss and turn too much. And also keep your dress protected, when you keep your clothes protected, lest the drops of my blood spoil it, which might reduce my reward with Allah. And moreover, if my mother were to see this blood, she will be virtually smitten with sorrow. Sharpen your knife and run it fast up my throat, so that my last breath comes easy on me, for death is hard. And when you return to my mother, pay my respects to her, and should you wish to take my shirt to her, you are welcome to do so. Maybe it would give her some comfort, the comfort she needs. Hearing these words coming from the lips of his only son, a father, as you can imagine what would have been going through in his heart. But there was Ibrahim, like a mountain of fortitude. He says to his son, son, what a good helper you are for me in this task assigned by Allah. Saying this, he kissed his son, and with wet eyes, he tied him. For me, I'm sure for you too, just reading these words, I can't even read them, because as a mother, I'm imagining if that was happening to my son, And the fact that he is so young and he has such wisdom, and to give him so much instruction before this monumental, literally about before his death. And also he's so concerned about his father's clothing, and he's so concerned about his mother at the same time. And so may Allah give us children like Isma'il. And that's what Allah says, that he was Ghulam Halim, right? The word Halim is mentioned in describing Isma'il. And so may Allah grant us children who are Halim also, and grant us, of course, that Halim also, make us Halims also, inshallah. So then it says, he laid him on his forehead, as mentioned in وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ. According to the explanation of this statement, reported by Ibn Abbas, Ibrahim a.s. laid Isma'il a.s. down on his side in a manner that one edge of his forehead was touching the ground. So Jabeen, it's not necessarily forehead, but the sides. Your curvatures over here? That's the Jabeen. So he literally laid him down like that. Lexically, this explanation is weightier, since the word Jabeen is applied to the two curvatures of the forehead, while the middle part of the forehead is called the Jabba. So this is called the Jabba. Is it Jabha? Sorry. Yeah, yes. Yeah, I think I put Jabha, right? Sorry. Okay. Ayah 107, and we ransomed him with a great sacrifice. So as he was about to, literally, it is said that Ibrahim a.s. actually took the knife and actually did the motion. And when he did that motion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah, of course it is Allah, right? You could have the sharpest weapon at your disposal, but who is in charge of it cutting? Who's in charge of it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So at that moment, the sharp knife did not affect the throat of Isma'il alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ransomed him with a great sacrifice. He says, Azim. In a hadith reports, it is said that on hearing this voice from the heavens, so he said, we ransomed him with a great sacrifice. In a hadith reports, it is said that on hearing this voice from the heavens, Ibrahim a.s. looked up and saw Jibreel with a ram, and a present of this ram from paradise was made to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he sacrificed it in lieu of his son as commanded by Allah. This sacrificial animal was called, what was it called? It was called the Azim. Great, because it had come by way of mercy from Allah, and no one can doubt about the acceptance of its sacrifice. And so, alhamdulillah, he was of course ransomed from, obviously he was not put to death, alhamdulillah. Not that Allah was going to allow that to happen, but of course in lieu of that there was a ram. We've actually found reports that said that at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, until the time of the Prophet ﷺ, we don't know what happened after that, the horns of that particular ram was actually in the Kaaba for the longest time. So even at the time of Rasulullah ﷺ, it is said that the ram, the horns of this particular ram were actually, from those days. So like 2,000 years on, those horns were still around at the time of Rasulullah ﷺ. And then it says, كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. This is how we reward those who are good in deeds. May Allah SWT make us of the muhsineen, of course. When a servant of Allah bows down before the command of Allah and is ready to sacrifice all personal thoughts and feelings, then ultimately Allah takes care of him, so that he remains safe from whatever could have afflicted him here in this world, and as far as the reward of the hereafter that we write down in his book of deeds. And that's exactly what the name of sacrifice, what sacrifice entails, of course, Right, so going back to this, inshallah. So when a survey says, so if you look at the story and if you go back to the verses, you'll notice that in nowhere in that story did Ibrahim alayhi salam apply his own logic. And he never once questioned Allah. And even from the beginning, Hajar did not apply her own logic. She literally put her trust in Allah. Then Ibrahim alayhi salam puts his trust in Allah and talks to his son. And Isma'il alayhi salam also then puts his trust in Allah and does not say, why is God asking you to do that? Is he cruel? Is he? None of those things. He just said, yeah, go ahead. If that's what Allah SWT has commanded you to do so Bismillah, go ahead. And I think that is what you come back with this story. There was no questions asked. It was just, go and just do it. That's it. No questions asked, because they had so much trust in Allah, and they didn't even have any questions with Allah, or no complaints with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the pelting of the shaitan. Some historical reports tell us that the shaitan tried to dissuade Ibrahim alayhi salam, from the pelting, from actually going ahead and sacrificing his beloved son. And so at each time it is said that Ibrahim alayhi salam picked up pebbles and threw it at the devil, at the shaitan. And it is said that on the days of the Hajj, would do the same upon the 3 pillars, stations at Mina. Pebbles are thrown to commemorate this very act. And it is one of, I know a lot of people they look forward to going for Hajj because they enjoy doing the pebble, of course, the pelting of the shaitan. But at that moment, you're actually supposed to, with each pebble, you're supposed to say, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice myself for Allah. Because that's what Ibrahim alayhi did. He ignored shaitan. He ignored shaitan's whisperings and continued even though, right? And that was his strength of character, his strength of iman, of course, and his, perseverance. That's it, I'm going to go ahead. I don't care what shaitan is about to do to me and dissuade me. And this dissuasion took place on 3 separate occasions, according to reports. Now, according to some people, actually, they're not 100% sure whether this in fact took place. But of course, we have had it from historical events that this actually took place. Allahu Alam, if in fact it did or did not. Nevertheless, when you and I go for Hajj, the pelting of the shaitan is literally just that we're not going to allow shaitan to come over us. And it's like we're doing it as an act of ibadah because Allah has commanded us to do so. And that we're going to continue to practice upon our faith because we want to do it. Not because, of any other reason. We want to do it because we're strong in our iman. And that's what the pelting of the shaitan is supposed to hopefully, represent, right? The virtues of Udhiya, Zayd ibn Arqam reports the message of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The companions asked the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ya Rasulullah, what is this sacrifice? He said, it is a way of your forefather Ibrahim alayhi salam. They asked, what reward is it? What reward is for us therein? He replied, there is a reward for every hair, meaning a reward for neat, useful parts of animals' bodies, of course lofty and merit, but also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward for the parts which are useless or thrown away, such as the hair. So they asked for the wool, Ya Rasulullah, he replied, there is one reward for every strand of wool. So of course, for every part of the body of that particular animal, of course you will be rewarded, but you'll also be rewarded for each strand of hair on that animal. And the hair, as you know, we don't even use it afterwards, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that subhanAllah merciful, and He's willing to reward you for, in a magnificent way, just for partaking in the Qurbani or the Udhiya. And now who is obligated to offer this sacrifice? Abu Hurairah reports the Messenger of Allah has said that whoever has the capacity to sacrifice and does not do so should not come to the place where the Eid prayer is offered. And according to this hadith is where the Hanafi ruling comes from, because of this particular hadith that do not enter the Musalla, don't come for the Eid Salah. If you can do the Udhiya and you don't do it, then don't even bother to come up for the Eid prayer. And literally that's the reason why we actually get our ruling. Qurbani is, again, like I said, wajib, compulsory, according to Imam Abu Hanifa upon every muqim, meaning of course a person who's a resident, and possesses 613.35 grams of silver or its equivalent in money, personal ornaments, stock or in trade, or any other wealth in which is surplus to his or her basic needs. Basically, if you have to give zakat, then you have to also give the Qurbani. And that is the Hanafi ruling, remember that. Not everybody else's ruling, but I'm just giving you the Hanafi ruling. Each adult member of a family who possesses that much wealth must perform his or her own Qurbani separately. So if you and I have your own, like your young girls have your own, you definitely can do your own Qurbani. Now for most of you girls, because you're living with your parents, a lot of the times your parents will be doing your Qurbani for you, which is absolutely fine. But I'm just giving you a heads up that if you want to do your own, you're more than welcome to do so, okay? Ibn Umar reports that the Messenger of Allah said, lived in Medina Munawwara for 10 years and performed Qurbani every single year. Remember, by the way, the Prophet was definitely not even sahib in Islam. He did not have this amount of wealth at his disposal. In fact, I can tell you right now, none of the Sahabas, except for a few, had this much wealth at their disposal. They were, in fact, way below the poverty level, of the United States. I can tell you that right now. Despite the fact that Prophet was not obligated or obliged to sacrifice, as he never possessed the required amount of wealth, he did so nevertheless. Sacrifice now made on the behalf of somebody else, like I just said, that your parents will be doing it for you, etc. So a sacrifice can be made on behalf of others, such as minor children. This is not wajib, it's not compulsory. Rather, it is mustahab, meaning desirable. So if I do it for my young son, by the way, my son's name is Ibrahim, alhamdulillah, and I definitely named him for Ibrahim alayhi salam. Please make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him the iman of Ibrahim and his family, inshallah, alayhi salam, and all of our Ibrahims in the world. Anyway, we definitely do it for Ibrahim, or my younger son is only 8 years old. My older sons are now, of course, they're beyond the ages of puberty, so they can definitely do their own. But even for them, as parents or mother or father, we end up doing it, for our children as well. If one decides to sacrifice on behalf of one's spouse, or a father decides to sacrifice on behalf of his adult children, aside from his own Qurbani, then he can do so with their permission. A sacrifice can be made on behalf of a deceased, as mentioned in a hadith related by Hanash anhu. I saw Ali sacrificing 2 rams, and I asked him, what is this? He replied, verily, the Messenger of Allah advised me to sacrifice them on his behalf after his passing. Hence, I am sacrificing on his behalf. I know in my family, it was a tradition. My father has always done Qurbani for his parents, my mother has done for her parents, so I'm just giving you a heads up that if you want to sacrifice for your deceased relatives, you're more than welcome to do so. According to some people, this is not permitted, but I'm letting you know that, as you can see from this hadith, is actually, the Prophet ﷺ was actually told Ali to do it after he passed away, so, it's definitely in a hadith. Sacrifice for the deceased can be done in 2 ways. if Udhiya Qurbani is performed for a deceased due to his bequest. Now let's just say I'm passing away and I tell my son to sacrifice on my behalf. I've actually made a wasiyah or a bequest. At that moment, when my son sacrifices for me after I pass away, they are not allowed to eat from that Qurbani. That Qurbani has to be given strictly to the who? To the poor and the needy. Okay? However, if my son sacrifices for me on my behalf after I pass away voluntarily, okay, so then definitely everybody else is fair game. You know, that Qurbani is there. Anybody can participate in it, partake in it. You can give a share of it to the poor, share of it to their family members, etc. No problem. Okay, so this is the difference in the two situations. Rulings regarding clipping nails and cutting hair prior to sacrifice. If you have an animal that you are going to sacrifice this year, inshallah, and hopefully we all are, it is a ruling could be understood from the following hadith. Salama reports that the Messenger of Allah said, whoever sights the crescent of the moon of Dhul Hijjah and is intending to make his sacrifice should refrain from cutting his bodily hair and clipping his nails. So if you want, and if you feel that you're going to do a sacrifice this year, which inshallah, like I just said, most of us are, then definitely before next Friday, go ahead and get yourself manicured and all that. You can just tip your nails and groom yourselves beforehand. Now, so after the sighting of Dhul Hijjah crescent, it is desirable for a person intending to make sacrifice to refrain from cutting the hair of his body and clipping his nails till he has slaughtered the animal. This is because he is making a sacrifice in lieu of the sacrifice of his own life. Each part of the sacrificial animal is in lieu of each body part of his own, and that's why. The Prophet ﷺ has given this order so that no part of a person's body may be absent at the time of the descent of divine mercy. Note, if more than 40 days have passed, one should not be idle in removing unwanted hair, nails, etc. In order to save oneself from the karahat, meaning abomination. So of course, if we have very horrendous long nails and you need to chop them off, clip them before, of course, it's not like haram or anything. This is definitely a sunnah and it's a recommendation. But if you need to go ahead and clip your nails and you haven't got to do them beforehand, then definitely you can do so. But we are highly recommended to do it before the Dhul Hijjah days start, inshallah ta'ala, until the Qurbani takes place. Okay? General advice, choose a good animal for Qurbani, take the children for Qurbani, make Qurbani a tradition. By doing so, it will hopefully create an atmosphere of Eid. And Qurbani is the community, of course, and Qurbani in the community and will serve as a lesson for generations to come. So unfortunately, we as Muslims in the West, we barely get to see Qurbani or get to see the Udhiya taking place. And I feel that our young ones, really have no idea that we are even sending on their behalf to another country, And it is a fear that, unfortunately, we may even, God forbid, lose this tradition if we do not, make it known to our young ones and our youth. So it's very important that you understand that. Please talk to your children about the Udhiya and the fact that you actually are sacrificing an animal in whichever country on their behalf, and let them know, or let them participate in the, sending the money. And if they have an opportunity to go, to a farm locally here somewhere, then definitely I would highly encourage you to send your children, with their fathers, or even you yourself, you should definitely 100% encourage that, because we don't want to lose this tradition over the next generations, right? And the thing is, we might consume meat, but we've never really seen the animals being slaughtered, right? So at that moment, all of a sudden, people start freaking out, like, especially young kids, it's so inhumane. But they forget that we're eating chicken and meat and beef and God knows every single day, right? And it's taking place. So definitely, I would highly encourage you to take your children, or at least allow them to be part of this discourse because we don't want this, tradition to, of course, to evaporate in the next, I don't know, in the next 10, 20, 30 years, who knows, right? So make sure part of the discourse is certain. Now the sunnah of Eid al-Adha, in this particular Eid, like even the other Eid, it is to waken earlier than usual, to brush teeth with the miswak, to take ghusl, of course, full bath, to be well dressed in an Islamic manner, to dress in one's best clothes, not necessarily new, brand new. You don't have to go and buy a new complete outfit every single Eid. Of course, just your best clothes. To perform Eid Salah at a greater gathering place, to avoid eating before the Eid Salah. Now, in this particular Eid, we've been discouraged to eat before the Eid Salah, because tradition is that you come back from Eid Salah, you do the Qurbani, the Udhiya, and then you have the fresh meat, and then we sort of eat right after that. It's not haram to eat before this Eid Salah, by the way. I always usually have my cup of tea, just FYI, okay? But we just encourage not to eat before, like the Udhiya, and we have the Udhiya meat later. Now you and I, unfortunately, we're not going to do that. We're not going to come back and have some Qurbani ready for us, in our backyard, right? Okay. So definitely you're more than welcome to eat after the Eid Salah, but it's just tradition not to. So sunnah not to eat like before this Eid Salah. In the other Eid, we've actually been encouraged to have something sweet before we go for the Eid Salah, and in this one, there's no such thing. So just the difference. To go to the Salah, of course, early, to walk to the Salah if within walking distance, and to recite the takbir loud en route to the Eid Salah. Right? In this particular Eid, we've been encouraged to recite the Salah takbir loud, and to use different routes to and from the Salah place. So if you're coming from one exit, come from an exit, something like that, inshallah. So it's just part of the Eid tradition to do that, and that's actually in the other Eid also. Okay? And I think that's it, inshallah. Right? Any questions? Any comments? Anything you'd like to, anything we haven't covered here? Normally we have a Hajj class, and of course the Hajj class, for those people who are going for Hajj, is quite a lot of detail, and obviously I have pictures and everything aside from aside from our regular classes. But that's definitely way more interactive, and that is one of my favorite things to do, is to give you a Hajj, coach. I like the Hajj coach. That's it. Or the Umrah coach. And it's like a lot of people, when they're going to go for Hajj or Umrah, sometimes nowadays I even had Zoom meetings with people who are going to go for Umrah, and I've gone through step by step, and it's one of my favorite things to do, And so inshallah, if ever you guys are going to go for Umrah or Hajj, inshallah ta'ala, so definitely, we can definitely help you with that. But other than that, alhamdulillah, we have these blessed days upon us, so do make the most of it, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, I'm giving you like a week in advance warning, so you can definitely gear up for all that. And, may Allah SWT accept these days from us, inshallah. And if you have a question, sorry, I think you have a question.
So I have a question in regards to giving Udhiya for children. When you were talking about the minimum amount that's you have to meet if you have that amount of wealth. So does that include things like when they're getting gifts as gold, or if they have an education fund? Does that qualify them financially?
Yeah. So if they're beyond the age, if they're above the age of puberty, then definitely that education fund or whatever that is, you have to give zakat on that, first of all. So it's just 2.5%. But yeah, they definitely qualify to be of that category that they should give their Qurbani, for sure. But of course, if there's a young minor, then none of these rules apply.
Is that also for zakat as well, if they're minor and then you don't?
No, so minor, no zakat. They can have millions of dollars right now, no zakat for them.
Okay.
Yeah. However, once they hit puberty, that's it, then they start giving the zakat. Yeah? So, like I said, a child can have $1 million and no zakat on that child until he or she reaches the age of puberty. At that point onwards, you start giving zakat on that child's, gifts, whatever that is, education fund, any of that. And so, but if you want to do Qurbani on the behalf of your child right now, you're more than welcome to do that. You understand? And it is considered a mustahab, is a desirable, but it's not mandatory or anything like that. you know. But a lot of us do that. We do give, alhamdulillah, we're all, you know, we have, alhamdulillah, sufficient funds, and we can all participate in the Qurbani for our young ones. It's something I encourage, by the way, a lot. You don't have to do it, but of course I encourage it, you know, that's all I can say. And you can have the Qurbani very, reasonably priced. I mean, subhanAllah, if you send it to certain places, like for example, I sent for some of my friends the other day to the very poor locations in India, where they actually only end up having meat once a year, you know, because, and especially nowadays, there's such a, everything's become so expensive, as you know, even for us, everything's expensive for us here. So imagine back, you know, in these countries where, you know, they can't necessarily have access to meat so often. So they actually look forward, you know, to the Eid, so that the poor people of the villages and that vicinity, they look forward to it, and they come to the shuyukh and they say, you know, to the Qurbani, did you receive any Qurbani funds this year? And the poor guys are like waiting for it, you know. So alhamdulillah, we just sent the other day I just sent to Calcutta, I sent to some place in Bihar, you know, which is in India, and these people only get meat once a year, you know. And so just next time you guys eat your, I don't know, beef steaks, I know Nasha likes her meat. She always calls me. Then think about these people who only get once a year, for example. Yeah, inshallah. Yeah.
My question is that some countries, you know, women cannot go to masjid because there is not specific space.
No facilities.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
what they should do on Eid day at home?
On Eid day at home, they'll just do their regular salah.
Regular.
Yeah, regular. And then remember there's Allahu Akbar. They'll do that, of course. But unfortunately, I know it's quite sad that a lot of the times the women are not it's not tradition for in a lot of countries to go to the Eid Salah. But if you can find a masjid which allows women to go, then I would definitely make that journey and go there. Yes.
If the women pray at home, it will be sunnah or not?
Oh, you talk about the Eid Salah itself? Oh, there'll be no Eid Salah for that
At
person.
home,
Yeah, exactly, yes. No Eid Salah, yeah. The Eid Salah is only going to be with the congregation.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can't do your own Eid Salah, say, oh, you know, let's do our Eid Salah at home. No, yeah. You'll just, I don't know. You'll have to live stream. A lot of masajid nowadays are live streaming their khutbahs, you know. So yeah, you can definitely probably listen to the khutbah, you know, online, which is quite sad, but still, you know, definitely something we encourage, of course. You can find a masjid, inshallah, yeah? All right, hopefully.
So
Yeah.
I heard that the women, they can pray in the home, the Eid Salah on their own.
I've never heard that before.
Because I saw like in Bangladesh, Tonkan, all of the aunties, they were doing
They would do Eid Salah together. I've never heard of that. From what I know, the Eid is supposed to be celebrated in a congregation and actually in the what we call Eidgah, you know, like a large facility, and that's where you're actually encouraged to go and do the Eid Salah, you know. So that is something that we won't do Salah at home. There's no, from what I've understood, we don't do an Eid Salah at home. You can do your regular duha or something like that, but not Eid Salah.
And I have another question, like, you hear the people always give the Qurbani in the name of our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam?
Yeah, so a lot of people do give Qurbani and give Udhiya, you know, for in the name of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Some shuyukh have discouraged that. The tradition that I'm from is highly encouraged. So you get two spectrums of this. I know from the tradition I come and the shuyukh that, you know, I have learned under, studied under, they all give Qurbani in lieu of on behalf of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Because there was a time when the Prophet ﷺ also did Qurbani on behalf of his ummah, you know? And so we do it also on his behalf. So like, for example, if there's an animal which has 7 shares, you know, because a cow has 7 shares, camel has a 7 share. So usually it will be like, you know, you can add one of the shares of the Prophet ﷺ. But a lot of people do that, and I personally do, but some people actually do not, they say it's not necessary and it's not permitted. So just there's two rules, 2 schools of thought here.
Okay.
But I personally do, just want to leave on that. Okay. Sorry, you have to handle it.
I think my question has been answered.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was about the shares. Because usually, like how we are doing it right now,
Yes.
when, you know, it's either a goat or 7 shares of a cow.
Yes.
So, each share should be for each person who has the intention.
There you go.
You can't actually share one share.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one cow, 7, camel 7, there's this buffalo, that's also 7. And all by the way, they have to be specific. Obviously it's going to be very detailed, but you have to have the animal has to be a certain age, certain amount of teeth. There's quite a lot of rulings, by the way, which I didn't think was necessary today, But definitely the type of animal that you're going to seek out for the slaughtering has to have a certain amount of teeth. It has to be like over a certain age, things of that nature. Yeah. But a sheep or a ram or a goat is one. Yeah. Okay, right. Yeah, so I would do the 7 shares, go with the whole family, and one animal, one cow, one buffalo. The best, by the way, the best Qurbani is definitely the camel, just to find out, which is quite, you guys are going to Dubai, so maybe you can do it there. But it's quite expensive from what I know, okay, just so you know, yes, go ahead.
So in one Qurbani has 3 shares, like 3 parts. Like
No.
one for poor people, one for family friends.
Okay. Now once you've done a Qurbani, let's just say my family, we all got together, we did one family Qurbani, right? 7 shares, right? Now you've slaughtered the animal. Now what do you do with the meat? Is that the question? Yeah, right. So traditionally what we do is we distribute the meat in that we have we keep 1 share for the family, our consumption. We do 1 for the poor and the needy. Okay, and then we do 1 for friends and family. Yeah? And that's how you usually get the meat to be distributed.
So here we couldn't find any needy people or poor people, so what we should that one?
You can eat it.
Maybe
More for you.
more for friends.
More for friends, yeah, definitely, yeah. But you know what, believe it or not, you can freeze it, and you can actually, if you're ever in this country and if you feel like you need to give it to some poor and needy people, and you can't find poor needy people, give me a call, because I actually know some people in, for example, in certain areas that actually, even in America, meat is expensive, by the way,
So one of my friends, she said that she cooks that part of meat, needy people, and she go for homeless people and distribute them. So can we do that?
You could possibly do that. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong, but
that we can eat everybody, like even
anybody can
Muslim,
eat, but I would definitely, there's a lot of poor Muslims, even in America, and believe me or not, like in the LA area and stuff, and I know this lady who actually goes, even last year I remember her going on and literally taking for herself, but also giving it around, to people. So there's a lot of people who actually, you won't believe it or not, they definitely need meat. So yeah, we can get in touch, inshallah ta'ala. But yeah, usually you get an animal and you sort of separate it into 3 sections, and But let's just say you don't find anybody and you end up eating the whole meat yourself, your family, then Bismillah. Yes. So sorry, sister.
Yeah.
Would you know Shana had the No, it's okay.
So on that question, so if we were to donate the share for the poor and the needy locally as dawah to non-Muslim, would that be allowed?
Do you know what? I mean, it's not like zakat. With zakat, you have to give to Muslims, right? Okay, with meat, as far as I know, you can definitely give the meat to non-Muslims also. Because I remember in India, in the villages, there's a lot of very, very poor, I know they're Hindus, but they do actually eat the meat and stuff, some of them. So they actually look forward to Qurbani as well, And so sometimes they line up and they take parts of the animal which normally us Muslims are too fussy to eat, So they actually eat even the sort of the inferior parts, So I can't see anything wrong with that. But yeah, inshallah, you can definitely, give Qurbani to non-Muslim, inshallah, okay? Hopefully I'm right, okay? I'll double check. If I'm wrong, let's just speak know and she'll let you all know, okay? But I'll come back to you on that, inshallah ta'ala, right? And Sister Justine, you have a comment?
No, what I was saying, we also, we love Qurbani. It tastes totally different.
It does taste a lot better, yeah.
Completely different. It's really good. So then over here it's also hard to find, poor people, and my halal Qurbani I don't want to give to, non-Muslim.
Yes.
I can invite them, my neighbor, they come, they eat, you know. But what we do, like, if we like, just think about it, it's $100 for one share, just throwing it out. Then ended up like 3 portions, so $33, $34, you know. So we send the money to the poor people or anywhere. You know. That's how we were doing.
Oh, then you eat the meat? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You can do that, and that's not necessary, by the way. It's not necessary for you to do that, just letting you know. You know? What you can do is you can have one Qurbani done in America for yourselves, and then the rest send it to the places where you need, where they're actually needy. You know what I mean? So just send the Qurbani amount to other countries, and then you can have one done here for your family yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
Yeah. So I would definitely do something like that. That you have one here as well, but then you send it to the poor needy other parts of the world, right? Because the share that we just sent, I mean, I just sent the other day, and literally it was like $25 to $30 a share, which is nothing, and that's $210 a whole animal.
Did you send me some time?
I know. I sent for my friends. Like some people gave me because there's very poor places. There's very poor villages in India, and they, you know.
I didn't get anything.
No, you didn't. I'm saying some people have given me. You know, but I'm just saying that. So, alhamdulillah, you can do that, inshallah. Okay? All right. So, any other questions or comments? Jazakallah khair for attending. Okay? And keep blessing your special du'as. And definitely make special du'as for the ummah. There's, of course, a crisis. We feel like there's some kind of anxiety in the air. A lot of the prices of things are going up. Make dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate the suffering of all Muslims and all humans around the world. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His next, hopefully the next coming days, especially the month of Dhul Hijjah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow the Hujjaj, grant them an easy Hajj, a maqbool, an accepted Hajj. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow their du'as to be accepted for us and ours for them, inshallah. And Allah Ta'ala grant us the iman of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Isma'il alayhi salam and Hajar and Sarah and of course our beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. جزاك الله خير.